recording. Okay, you may have just heard a little thing and may have gotten a notice on your screen. So my name is Laura Myers. I am the chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee. And we are one of almost 10, 8 to 10, depending on the month, standing committees of the United Neighborhoods of Historic Arlington Heights, West Adams, and Jefferson Park Communities Neighborhood Council. I'd like to welcome you here. I have posted the agenda, and you'll see that the first item is welcome, introductions, and approval of the agenda. So I am going to say I see somebody needs admitting. And if anybody can see, since I'm sharing the screen, does it look like I admitted somebody? Sorry. You may unmute yourselves if you want to answer.
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Did.
And what I didn't do, unfortunately, you know what, I'm going to stop the share for a second, because who would like to be the co-host since John is not here? Teresa, would you like to be the co-host? So you can watch do you know how to watch the waiting room? Or if not, Jeff, do you want to be the co-host? I just need somebody to be a co-host.
I'll be happy to take it.
Thank you. Just to watch the waiting room, please, while I'm sharing the screen, because I just can't do both. So I'm sharing the screen again. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. So my name is Laura Myers. As I said, I am the longtime co-chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee for United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council. I am on the board. I live in Angeles Vista. Could everybody else please, one by one, introduce yourselves? So I'm going to say Teresa, then Dennis, because I can see you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Teresa Masonette. I am the West Adams Avenues representative on the UNNC board.
And I'm Dennis Lesky. I'm the new one of the representatives for the Harvard Heights, West Adams Heights area.
Okay, and then I see, I may pronounce this wrong, Aisling.
Hi, I'm Ashling Swindell. I'm one of the residents at the property here on Adams and Edge Hill.
Okay, and then Eric and somebody.
This is Kate, my wife. We are with Ashling as well here at Edge Hill and Adams.
Okay, and Jeff, can you introduce yourself and then call on, if you wouldn't mind calling on the other people who are not on camera so I can't see them? Oop.
You're muted, Jeff.
Okay, there we go. I'm Jeff Camp. I'm a resident of West Adams Avenues and past president of UNNC and heavily involved in our neighborhood issues so that we can make everything better. Laura, the next person that you might not be able to see.
Well, Michael, I know Michael's here. Donna's here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we got Steve.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Steve Pepjonovic. I am a local resident, just a member of the public attending today's meeting.
Thank you. So I know there's Michael and I know there's Donna.
Do we need to introduce ourselves?
Jared Hillman.
Yes, hi, I'm Jared Hillman, and I'm also with the residents and owners of 4000 West Adams.
And I'm Natalie Lander.
Hi, welcome. Okay.
Donna?
I still would like to hear from Michael and Donna.
Donna, you want to go? All right, I'll go. I'll go. Yeah, I'm Michael Kimbrough. I'm a resident and a chairperson for the Avenues residential area.
And Donna, if you have a mic.
I'm here. Hello, I'm sorry, I just walked in. I'm Donna Jones, West Adams Avenue, acting chair of the Neighborhood Association. Hello, everybody.
Thank you. And am I missing anybody at this point, Jeff?
Yes, Eric.
Okay. Want to introduce? Okay. If nobody else is going to introduce him or herself, I'm going to move on with our explanation. So how UNNC conducts our Zoom meetings, you may have been at some other neighborhood councils or city Zoom meetings. Often they're webinar, but we use the meeting format because we would like full participation, and we try to empower our stakeholders to let their voices be heard, not just by us, but by the city. So how our process works, our neighborhood council, the board members are elected, but the committees themselves, the chairs are elected by the board, but the membership is essentially whoever is participating in a given meeting. And what that means is you may fully participate, you may make a motion, you may vote. Usually we would request that applicants do not vote, although we would know how they normally would vote. But that's completely up to you. The reason we do this is that we are only making a recommendation to our governing board. This is not any sort of final decision making. The governing board itself is the entity that makes a final decision and makes a recommendation to the city. So that said, if I'm showing you the agenda, and there are essentially 3 items on it. One is case number ZA 2020-2060-F at 4000 West Adams Boulevard. One is a proposed letter regarding historic CEQA assessments for development projects. This is more of it says discussion and possible action, but there's probably a discussion tonight and later action. And if any, follow up to previous cases, ENS and old business. And I would need a motion to approve the agenda from anyone who's here.
I make the motion to approve the agenda. Donna Jones.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second the motion.
Teresa seconds. And is there any objection to approve this agenda by acclamation? Okay, so agenda is approved. The next item on this agenda is public comments, if any. The public comments are for anything not on the agenda, and each person would have 1 to 2 minutes maximum. Are there any public comments? Okay, and I should say, I don't know if all of you are familiar with Zoom or new to Zoom, but if you are on the computer here in Zoom, here in the Zoom room, to raise your hand, please pull up first. You take your cursor down to the bottom of the black screen, see the word participants, pull that up. So you'll see who's here, but you'll also see at the bottom now of that column, a ability to raise your hand. So Donna has her hand raised. Are you demonstrating raised hand, or do you have a comment to make?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Thank you.
Again announcing that West Adams Avenues is doing a big Sunday, but not actually a big Sunday, community cleanup day on 7th Avenue, 2500, well, actually 2500 block. 4 dumpsters will be available starting on the 31st of July and going on to the 1st of August. And 8 to 8, those dumpsters are available with all items that are legally allowed to go in there. No tires and oil and all kinds of things that you know that are not allowable, but our flyer does have that. It will be posted on most of the community pages. You're welcome to participate. Food in the morning on Saturday will be a continental breakfast served, and tickets will be handed out to the first 50 people for lunch. So please join us 31st of this month for a community cleanup. Clean out your garage, haul things over, put it in, and every night the dumpster divers come and take it away. So we'll have more room.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. And Teresa?
I just wanted to remind everybody that no electronic waste or chemicals.
Right. Right. And I'm guessing don't drag a mattress over there, right? I don't know. But
They don't, it gets taken out every night. The people come in a truck and take it away.
Right.
We don't want to throw things outside the dumpster, but I think mattresses are allowed. I did
Okay.
see some last year.
All right. I'm not even going to envision who it might be who would want to take a used mattress out of a dumpster, but okay. It's not worth commenting on my rude comment. Okay. Are there any other public comments on any item not on this agenda? Okay, we're going to move on then to case number ZA, and that's zoning administration 2020, and that's the year it was filed, 2060F. And I feel like the letter F has to do with the word fence at 4000 West Adams Boulevard, which is at the corner of Adams and Edge Hill. This is a request that was filed with the city planning department to retain an overheight 6-foot wooden fence within the required front yard setback of an R3 zoned lot. The fence, and just so everybody who's here knows, the fence was indeed built without a permit, but it was not built by the people who live there now. It was built by the prior owner, who was an investor. But in any case, the fence itself is subject to a current code enforcement action. And the other piece of information is it's not located within either the Jefferson Park or the West Adams Terrace HPOZs, but it is located within the city designated Adams Boulevard Scenic Highway, which the Scenic Highway is from Figueroa to Crenshaw. So this is not in the middle, it's on our edge of it. So I know that the applicants are the group of owners who own this building, but is there one person who's going to speak on behalf of everyone? And if, yeah, that would be you, Jared. So go ahead. And then I do have stuff I can post, but why don't you kind of give an introduction? What I have that I will want to share with everyone is, I'm looking at it myself. I have the ZEMIS map, and I also have, which I just accidentally closed, and I have a overview photograph. So, but why don't, Jared, why don't you talk a little bit, and I'm gonna sadly go back to where I was initially and reopen the ZEMIS map because I just clicked it closed.
Okay, sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks everybody for having us on the meeting tonight. My name is Jared Hillman, and I'm one of 5 owners here at this property. We're all on right now. I'm here with my wife, but we all are owners and occupants of the property. It's a 3-unit property, and we all live here. I think Lori did a good job in explaining some of the fundamentals of the situation. The fence that's in question was here when we bought the property roughly 2.5 years ago. It is 6 feet tall. It's in the front of our property on the Adams Boulevard side. It's made of redwood, sort of your standard dog-eared redwood posts. And frankly, it was one of the reasons why this really felt like the right home for us when we made this big decision to each of us to buy our homes, because it provides a degree of safety and protection and privacy from the very, very busy street. Not only is Adams, as you know, a busy street, and Edge Hill which is also 10th Avenue. We're just at the south side of that intersection. It's a busy intersection. But perhaps most specifically is this bus stop of the 37 bus eastbound that is just a few feet from our front steps, which invites people to congregate all day and all night. People often will use the front steps as a de facto bus bench. They'll sit on the grass and whatnot. And, we don't shoo anyone away or call any enforcement. It's just sort of not an imposition enough because of this fence that we feel provides that privacy and by extension the safety of having it, so that people aren't just standing there at all hours kind of watching our comings and goings and in our windows and whatnot. So it is very important. As I said, we moved in a couple of 2.5 years ago roughly. I know for us this is a place where we that we found as a way to start our family, and safety and privacy are top priorities. We feel that the fence that was here when we bought it is key in helping us feel safe there. What I can say that's good about the fence, in addition, is it is set back properly from the sidewalk. It doesn't box in the sidewalk. It leaves a nice grassy slope of about 10 feet. So it's, somewhat still, scenic, and there's room. As I said, people have use it as the bus stop, and sometimes occasionally we'll sleep there on the grass, but it isn't against the sidewalk. Another thing is that it doesn't obscure traffic sight lines. In fact, the people that did put it in truncated the corner so that if there were any question, it's got an even more open sight line than if it were just a squared off corner intersection. What else can I say about it? We feel that it provides safety without impeding on the safety and property rights of our neighbors. And, the 2.5 extra feet that's in question here between a 3.5 foot height that would be standard and the 6 that exists here, from the perspective of the residents, us inside, it really is a crucial 2.5 feet. We hope that with the proximity of the bus stop, that's, taken into consideration as a particular thing and not just a frivolous desire to have a fence. It's important to us, and that's why we felt it was important to come here and explain our situation. If you want to, do you want to show any of the?
Yeah, what I want to do is show a couple of things, and it'll have to be one at a time. I'm sorry, just because I didn't create a presentation either, so. Okay, so the first thing I'm showing you guys, can you see, I'm sharing the screen. Can you guys see the screen? Okay, so the property in question is this corner outlined in blue, if you were watching my cursor. But one of the pertinent things is if you see this green line that goes across, can you all see that? So, and you see this 40 foot. So this is from ZEMIS, which is the city's mapping and zoning information system. There is a building line which is a mandatory 40-foot setback. So the front yard setback on this property is not the citywide 15 feet, but is rather the full 40 up to the front of the first building. So there's 2 buildings. So that's the land use issue. So essentially, from a pure, just simple land use issue, you're not allowed to have a backyard height fence in a front yard. Not you, but one is not allowed to do that. So this group of applicants has applied in effect to the city for approval of a variation to that regulation. So they would like to have essentially a fence that's the height of a backyard fence, or a fence that's behind a front setback in the front yard. So I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to see, again, I'm sorry about this because I'm trying to look for things on my computer to share. So So again, can you all see the photo, what I've shared? So my cursor is kind of going around. This is the property in question, and that's the fence. And then one of the reasons the neighbors had expressed alarm back when the fence was erected, again, probably before you guys purchased it, was they were worried that it would be a precedent for other people doing the same thing. And sure enough, that you see a second fence, which is not your fence, but so that's raised some concerns, further concerns with the neighbors. So in both cases, again, I'm going to draw the line, but where my arrow is drawing is supposed to be this building line. And then you guys, I'm saying you guys, sorry, the applicant submitted this file. Let's see if I can make it smaller so we can see it. And I'm just going to go through it. This is a file that was submitted by the applicants to the zoning administrator that I downloaded. I have no idea what those numbers are, so I'm going to move on. But again, we're at the property. And let's see if I can make
the numbers just refer to where these photos were taken.
Oh, yeah, that's more important for a zoning administrator than a neighborhood council. So these are photos of the property. And this is outside, 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 in the yard, inside the yard, inside the yard. And then some examples of other properties with fencing nearby. And I'm
Laura,
not
can you
sure.
please blow that up?
I'm sorry?
Can you please blow that up, Laura?
Yes. So I'm not very clear why 4022 West Adams is pictured because I don't even see a fence. And what's not pictured but was referenced in the discussion at the zoning administration hearing was also the McGowan Mansion was referenced as, or maybe in a different piece of the package, as an example where a variance was approved for an overheight fence. So I'm going to make a quick observation that all of the fences being shown as an example of other fences are see-through wrought iron, and they're not privacy fences, solid wood. So do you want me to stop the share? Because I was gonna stop the share here.
Sure.
Whether or not you want me to, I'm stopping the share here. So I know that there's probably comments across the board. I will say that the hearing was held already, but the case file is open until Friday, August 6th. The neighborhood council meets on Thursday evening, August 5th, so they have kept the file open. The zoning administrator at the hearing said he was going to research the impacts, if any, of what it means to be located within a city designated scenic highway. But the purpose, the reason Adams Boulevard is a scenic highway is it's an urban kind of reason. It's not because of it's not along the coast with beautiful blue ocean waters. I mean, it's specifically because of the history behind this long stretch of Adams Boulevard, Street of Dreams, Church Row. It's an urban reason. So with that, we might have some more technical discussion, but I would like to open this up for comments and questions. And I think we should start, if anyone has questions for the applicant, if anyone does, please raise your hand. Dennis?
Yes, my question is, have you considered any alternative? I understand that you moved in, this fence was in place, but it's got the charm of like a billboard going along West Adams there. if you could put plantings in, I know in my neighborhood, a lot of people will put in some plantings that provide a good deal of privacy and I assume some security. Could you replace the fence with a row of plantings that is some approved height?
Is that a question or a comment?
Well, that's a question. I think they could resolve the whole thing by doing that.
Yeah, actually, our understanding was that that plantings of a height like this would still be disallowed, but it's certainly something that we're open to because we're just looking for that kind of security of the height and the privacy, the opacity. But I would be, I think, very open to greenery as an alternative if it's the aesthetics that is of objection.
Okay. Does that, Michael? And then Donna, and again, I'm sort of trying to start with questions and then go to comments.
Sure. Well, it is a question, and I have to apologize because I'm a little behind in the knowledge on what's happening. Are the three applicants owners of the property or merely renting?
We're five of us and we all own it and all live. So we're two.
So it's essentially a condominium?
It's a
no.
Michael, it's a TIC, that newfangled thing that the city hasn't quite figured out where to throw it into the municipal code. Tenants in common.
The three of us, two couples and a single, co-bought the triplex that we'd each have a unit to live within. And so it's sort of a community and a partnership, and we all live here as our primary.
Okay, thank you. I get that now. Cool. Next, I'm just trying to understand that the ruling of the judgment of the board, the zoning board, was asking you to remove the fence or just lower the fence?
No, there's been no planning department ruling. That the case is open for comment until end of day August 6th.
Okay, so
it was building and safety actually cited the property, but it didn't post it before just before these new owners closed escrow, but so it was against the prior. But building and safety determined and issued orders that this fence is not by right because it's within that front yard setback. So there's multiple options when you get orders to comply, as you well know, Michael.
Right.
One of them is say, oh, okay, I'll do it. Another is to apply to the city to get an exception to those orders. So that is, and in this case, a land use exception. I have no clue if initially anybody applied to building and safety to see if they would, adjust the orders. I don't think so, but they applied for the land use. The other thing is, of course, COVID hit. So this has been they submitted the application in March of 2020, but it didn't hit public hearing until July.
Okay.
Of 2021.
So I guess the question I'm asking to the group is, what is the ask of us?
Well, thank you for that. Our understanding is that we're being asked to shorten the fence to the standard 3.5 feet. So the ask from us to you folks is to not oppose that it stays at 6 feet as it is now, because we feel it provides the safety and the privacy that it provides. So it's that 2.5 feet difference is my understanding. That I don't think it's about not having a fence. I think it's about the height of the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so Donna, you're next.
Hi, that property, I understand the idea of being on a corner and being on rather a major street. There's an issue with privacy and safety, but it's been there a really long time. And historically, West Adams is a really special street. So my concern is that big, ugly wooden fence. I understand wanting something, but that is just a slap in the face. So I had to say that, sorry.
Okay,
Well-
is there a question? Maybe not. Okay.
What else could we do?
Right. Well, okay, so can you answer? I don't know.
If
Laura,
it, yeah,
Teresa's next. I mean, I know we've digressed into comments, but I hope our newer neighbors will understand that your neighbors may have comments that may not totally align with your view, but that
Laura,
having a participatory conversation. Somebody's asking me something, but Teresa's hand is up.
Well, I just want to say, I
That's
don't have
fine,
any
Laura.
questions, but
I
I
just
do
wanna
have a
be a-
comment. when
I'm
we-
sorry, Jeff is talking. Now he's not. Okay, Teresa.
Okay, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. So when
Sure.
it's time.
Yeah,
would like-
I think it's time. I think we kind of already merged into comments.
Okay, well, did you have a question, Jeff?
no, Teresa, after you, I just can't raise my hand because I'm now a co-host.
Got it. Okay.
Well, first, I just want to say, I don't like the fences at all. I love the greenery driving down West Adams Boulevard. Certainly having a 6-foot fence and a redwood fence, aesthetically, it's unattractive. And I understand that you guys want to have privacy. I even object to having a 3.5-foot fence, because can you imagine having that fence line all the way down at all the other structures along from 10th all the way down to Crenshaw? I just think it would look horrible, to be quite honest. But if there could be a lower fence, and I know it wouldn't give you guys privacy, and I know you bought those units thinking you're going to have privacy and it's on a corner. I get it. A lot of times developers, don't do the right thing, and people don't know that it's in a HPOZ, or that, the developer did things and they didn't get approval for it. But we have an aesthetic in our neighborhood, and having up fences isolates owners from other people who live in the neighborhood. And I just feel that we should not personally allow the fences at all. No, sorry, that's my opinion.
Okay, Jeff.
Thank you, Laura. Jared, thank you for being a part of our neighborhood and having to deal what you're having to deal with now. I completely understand that. I need to share with you that I was a field deputy, and this was my grid area starting in 2017. I know that as a neighborhood, we reported this property owner and the one further down that Laura pointed out, I guess it's 2 properties to the west, for the same thing. So I've been dealing with this issue for a very long time. Like the others have mentioned, that fence blocks off not only, the beautiful property that you have, but it is not appropriate for the area. I would like to point out, like others have said, either go with a vegetative border or a wrought iron fence. Many of our churches along West Adams Boulevard have wrought iron see-through fences that still allow you to see the beautiful property that you now own. And that's where I would personally go.
Okay. And then,
understood. Yeah, I think, first of all, I appreciate hearing these perspectives, because, from initially, an anonymous complaint, we didn't really know exactly what the objection is. So I'm hearing that it's about the appearance. It's about potentially it becoming something that's all the way down Crenshaw Adams down to Crenshaw. And these are important for us to understand. You know, we are here feeling like this is very important for us, and you know, it's important for us to understand why it's also important to you, and that there are people who it's important to other than us.
Well, and James, I also understand the need for the security, both from a homeless population situation and the fact that you're at the corner of a bus stop. Those are two things that will be able to help you to maintain that level of security and private property without taking away from the rest of the neighborhood or the historic West Adams Scenic Highway.
Were you saying that there are other solutions that are you saying that you maybe have other solutions for that issue?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that you have plenty of properties. I mean, I encourage you to drive down West Adams Boulevard, drive up and down in this area from maybe Crenshaw to Arlington. You will see many properties that have wrought iron fences fronting their property, but you can still see through to see the property.
Right.
And that also allows you to maintain the fact that it is private property. So if you are having issues with security or safety issues, you can further interact with LAPD in order to, you know, change that situation. I've also seen, you know, the vegetation, the brush and the, you know, but I would suggest going with something with a more solid wrought iron fence of the appropriate height, which I believe is 42 inches. I could be wrong, but it allows you the private property and the security that you and your other property owners are seeking, and still be able to enforce.
Right. Okay, I have a couple of, we're going in a circle here, but I have Michael, then Dennis, then Donna. So I know we're having repeats, but repeat people,
I just want to,
not repeat comments.
I just want to add one thing. We to Jared and the other homeowners, we've been tasked with being stewards of the neighborhood, and with that comes a responsibility. It's unfortunate the situation that you're in, but I do echo Teresa's thoughts. I thought she was right on time. The danger with allowing this fence to remain is that it sets a precedent to which other property owners can cite the example and force us into allowing them to do the same thing as you. That's the problem that we have. If we allow you to keep the fence, then it's a dangerous precedent for other property owners that want to do the same.
And our variances, perhaps you all know better than I, our variances or what we're asking for from the administrator, are they phrased in any particular way that could make this specific to the proximity of the bus stop being 5 feet from our doorstep?
I do land entitlement. It would have to be some kind of joint understanding with the zoning administrator to put that language together so it's acceptable by all parties concerned. I would not say it would be impossible, but I would try to look for a more colorful solution, if you will, instead of something as harsh as that. And the other thing that's not helping you, those photos didn't do you any good. I mean, I looked at those photos and I went, oh, that's horrible. That was my first reaction. So there may be other ways to mitigate this thing. But as I said before, we're on the edge of a dangerous precedent if we allow this to go as is. That's my comment.
Okay. Dennis, then Donna, then I raised my hand.
I endorse these reasonable approaches that I've just listened to. My comments about our role in all this, as I understand it, our role is to either retain or vote to not retain this fence and not to solve the problem. We've had some good suggestions, but as a member of this board and respecting the community, I can't accept retaining this fence as it is, period.
Well, I guess I'll just comment. We are able to make a recommendation of of a compromise solution if that is what we wanted to do. So that in other words, if, first of all, we're recommending to the board, but the board has a possibility of recommending that it's okay to have a fence, even an overheight fence, but that it needs to be wrought iron see-through, for example. That, I don't know that we will make that recommendation, but in other words, we could be opposed to this wall of a fence, but let's let Donna speak and then let me really speak. Donna.
Just wanted to mention again, I don't know how much you guys know. You've been here 2-3 years. The area, if you could look at the history in West Adams and what we're about and how important it is. Like he said, we are tasked with maintaining something that you will never see again. You look at the Dr. McGowan house, you look at the mansion right at 9th Avenue on the south side, that huge off-white mansion. You're not gonna see that built anywhere anymore. There's nobody that can do that anymore. So this area is super important. And it's really important that we maintain the important aspects of West Adams, historic West Adams. It's super important. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Teresa, do you go ahead and then I'll, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
just one quick statement. I just also want you guys to know that directly across the street on the north side of West Adams is the beginning of the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone. So directly across the street, we're all under an HPOZ. So we have very stringent regulations on any improvements to the exterior, to the landscaping. So we're trying to, even though you're not in an HPOZ, we would like the consistency to, to remain.
Sure, I absolutely understand and respect that. And I appreciate that you brought up the HPOZ. We're not in it, but we're very close. And I think, we agree that the history of this property and the street is important to us. I think, the aesthetics of the fence, we maybe disagree is as obtrusive as it is to you who have been here longer. The directly across from us are non-contributing features to that HPOZ. So we're really looking at 70s multi-story, soft story buildings that aren't exactly the beautiful mansion down the street and the religious one, but I still understand what the concern is. This is a 1936 house. I think we feel that with a redwood fence, it's a natural material. I'm sure it was available back then, even if it wasn't the fence of the time, the fence du jour, but it was probably available. The top of our building is still available, is still able to be seen. The Edge Hill side is still able to be seen. We hope that this strip that is not seen, even though we have greenery still visible and the roof line, that it's not, that especially on the block that has non-contributing features. And I think that other photo was included, Laura, to show that 2 doors or 3 doors down, we have someone with a giant parking lot in the front of our building, in the front of their building, and there's a rusty trailer that's parked 24/7. So there are features to the block that don't provide safety or privacy, and that they are there, and it's just the way it is. Right across the street is a lovely historic house, but they have an inflatable one of these guys. There are things that come up, and I wish that weren't there, but it's their prerogative, and I feel that that's fair. Anyway, I mean to just say that there's a lot of different characters in terms of architecture and design and features and things on this particular block, and I apologize that we disagree that this particular fence is we don't feel it's as egregious as you do, but I'm listening to you. I think the wrought iron and hedges is a great solution if it weren't so expensive and we hadn't just made the biggest purchase of our lives. Part of the daunting aspect of receiving after 6 months of living here in the home, we finally said, yes, I think we can do this. And we go ahead and make that step, is to learn that it's not necessarily the property that we had bought with the features that we bought. But what I was getting at was, Oh, I lost my train of thought a bit because I got a little
Well,
bit.
I'm sure it will come
emotional.
back. So let me make a couple of comments if you don't mind, and we're
Sure.
not cutting you off, but I'll let you
While I
rethink
think about
train
it.
of thought. Yes. So I really have a couple of thoughts. I mean, the first thing, because I thought of this at the hearing and I'm thinking of it now. I am very sorry that you all think you need so much privacy and safety, because it's so not what we are about in this community. And I feel that because somebody created this privacy and then you bought it into it, that you've gotten to know each other very well, but you haven't gotten to know the rest of us and the rest of the community. And then of course, how would you have? We've been shut down since March of 2020. But this is a community that's like a small town. Everybody knows everybody else. They look after their neighbors. They look after their cats. They look after their dogs if they're out of town. They share the fruits, literal fruits from their fruit trees. Donna shares eggs. Maybe Donna sells them these days, but she used to just share them. The alley is filled with chickens, in other words, and so on and so forth. So I'm really sorry that you even feel you need that privacy, because it's kind of not, I mean, you know, when I moved here 38 years ago, I'm surprised my hair is not more gray than it is, but I moved here a long time ago, and my soon to be best friend, another person who bought a home right around the same time I did, she kind of said something that we all have subsequently said over and over again over the years, which was, I thought I was buying an old house, but really what I bought was a neighborhood. I learned that she said, I learned that very quickly, but I agree. When the kids started playing on her lawn and she invited neighborhood children into her house. I mean, so I'm this is a sympathetic way of saying I'm not sympathetic truly to a major privacy fence in the front yard. But I'm not mad. I'm just saying, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I'm sorry you haven't had a chance to meet everybody.
Yeah, I understand. And you're right that the pandemic certainly, you know, changed our ability to meet neighbors and whatnot. I feel like before we were here for roughly a year or more, and we got to know some of the neighbors on our street. As I mentioned, our intention isn't to blockade ourselves entirely from the community, and our Edge Hill side is not boxed in. It's really this proximity to the bus stop where people are. And in fact, shortly before we moved in, but after we had bought this place, we learned that there was yard furniture stolen from within the yard, even with the fence up and not secured, which is why we are reluctant to say that a 3.5 foot fence.
Okay, I can beat you on that. We had an oversized cow, art piece cow, in the yard of the Star Dairy farmhouse at Arlington and Montclair. It too was stolen. And we've been and when the owner, my partner, went down to the police station to report it stolen, the police laughed at him and wouldn't even take a report. Just so I'm clear. So these things do happen, and it's unfortunate. But
Laura?
yes, I see a lot of hands. So
well, not just hands. I'm sorry, I was also going to say two more things. The zoning administrator cannot really enter into a sort of, I don't mean private, but a specified agreement that the bus stop, because the city is not who places the bus stop. It's a different agency, and they move the bus stops all the time. So that you have a bus stop there now does not necessarily mean you'll have a bus stop there a year from now, because they keep moving them. So there cannot be a permanent land use decision related to a bus stop that may or may not continue to be present. And lastly, the thing about precedents, even in your own technical application. So I mean, I know you had a land use consultant, but the consultant was making the case that because the McGowan mansion was approved for an overheight fence, and again, it's wrought iron and it has deep landscaping, but approved for it, that served as a positive precedent to allow you guys to have one. So that's a technical thing that
I mean, it's just technically a precedent as precedent. And I need to stop because I have so many hands. Okay,
All
what
right.
did you say? It was Ansley, even though it's spelled.
Laura, wait a minute. I can't raise my hand.
Okay, Jeff, and then all the blue hands after that. Jeff next. And
Okay,
you know what, Jeff, you could just
Jared.
click on reactions or something.
Jared,
Yes.
this is for you. Check with your title insurance because this claim was already against the property before you bought it.
Right.
And I'm sure they didn't tell you about it whatsoever. So you can use your title insurance to offset the cost of removing the fence, maybe not necessarily replacing the fence with wrought iron or, bushery, whatever, shrubbery, but that's an aspect that I would recommend that you take because this one has been on the books for quite a while.
Understood. I see. So thinking that title insurance could offset the cost if we're to revise the fence because of having this here and not being disclosed.
Exactly.
On it. Okay.
Okay.
I realized what I was going to say when I lost my train of thought.
Go ahead, and then I'm going to call. There's a bunch of hands raised, but go ahead.
Okay, was just about the suggestion of the wrought iron and some greenery, which sounds wonderful. Of course, far more expensive than even the thousands of dollars it'll take to revise this fence. And that was just something that was not available when we were first informed of this, and not now as well. So I don't know if there are other financial solutions, although I appreciate that, Jeff. We'll look into that to find something that makes an aesthetic compromise.
So, okay, and I'm going to just, sorry, because I keep interrupting. The code enforcement case started in October of 2018, and I believe you guys the applicants became owners in February 2019. So that my recollection is that I just don't know if the case was filed, but the order's not yet written when you took ownership, or if they just, in other words, I don't know how long it took to close. So it may have been that 9A report that you would have received through escrow as a part of the purchase, it's called a 9A residential something. It's a requirement of the city of LA. So you probably got it in escrow, but it may have predated the orders to comply, even though you didn't close for another month, because I don't know how long you were in escrow. I mean, I don't know all of that, but the timing is everything sometimes. So that doesn't mean Jeff's wrong about, Jared, you're muted.
Right. The order to comply came in summer of 2019, where we had lived
right.
for about 6 months.
But I just checked the city records. It was October 2018 that the code enforcement started. It just may not have melded, made its way to you. Okay.
Right.
So in order.
Or in the system necessarily. I don't know how long it takes to be processed at their office versus online, because we certainly did due diligence when we were in that process and looked up records.
Well, it wasn't your job to do that due diligence. It was the seller's to disclose to you. So just to be blunt. So Miss Swindell, did pronouncing that right? Tell us again.
Actually, there will not. Laura, you sort of mentioned a few things, and I just want to take a minute to kind of just talk through who we are as neighbors. We definitely not move in this area as scared people looking for any sort of, coverage with a tall fence. I mean, we're just like young first homeowners. What appealed to me, I'm the single one that lives here, and I love that it was kind of like a full package deal. I can move in, I didn't have to worry about the maintenance and kind of rebuilding this home. And what I loved most about this place was the neighborhood. So I want you to know, we know Red across the street. His aunt owns the apartment building. He comes out and mows the lawn every week. We know Derek, who lives a couple apartments up, and he's always walking by yelling, hey neighbor. So we're friendly with the neighborhood. We love the neighborhood. We love the charm. In no way are we trying to put a fence to separate ourselves. I think my main angle here has been the financial aspect, just being a single woman, and we've worked through a few scenarios. The greenery, we looked at different fence options. Even to cut our fence down is going to cost us a pretty big chunk of money. And to be quite honest, we just don't necessarily have it. And so that's kind of why we're here working through creative solutions. And I just want to take a minute for you and everyone. And Jeff, thank you for that notice about the title. I didn't know that. So I really appreciate the dialogue. And I want you to know we are very happy to be part of this neighborhood. And we look forward to living here for a very long time. And having a solution that works for all of us, because that's what we're here to do as neighbors. So thank you.
I'm just going to quickly jump in because I'm going to follow
Eric, you are next.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Guys, thanks for letting us come on chat. Aisling said a lot of what I was going to say is we all, as we moved in, there's nothing malicious about the fence. And we all react to what happens to our homes differently. Ms. Myers, you seem, like we said, your cow thing, right? You said that happens, and you're right, it does happen. And for us, it was happening a bit more frequently. And so the idea of taking down the fence, as Jared said, it made us nervous, right? We love this neighborhood. I don't like the idea that personal attacks are being lobbed toward us for not liking the neighborhood. I know Faye, who lives across the street, who walks her dog every day. We chat, our dogs play. We let ours off the leash because we trust them and we can do it in this area, right? We have the neighbors down the street who also have dogs who we're very good friends with. It's kind of like the little dog walking committee, right? We've got Remy, we got Dessa down the street. We know our neighbors. We're not trying to infringe upon that. So I don't love the personal attacks for allowed this. And again, we can all agree and disagree on what's beautiful, what's not. I'm sorry that some of you guys don't like the fence. You think it's not that attractive. Apologies. There's other things on this street that Jared brought up that, yeah, we agree. We would wish it was better looking, right? But c'est la vie. But as Ashton said, when it comes down to it, I wish we could make everyone happy. We're just not the developers who put it in, and the money isn't there for us. We're happy to have this dialogue. We want to do right by everyone. We want to be a part of this neighborhood. But financially, it's tough. Aisling, as she said, mentioned her position. My wife lost her job during COVID. It's been tough. And doing something on a timeline that I know you guys are wanting is going to be difficult. And I just want to share our experience, guys. And I really do appreciate everything you're saying. We love this neighborhood, run it every day, walk the dogs every day, making friends. So thank you for letting us in. And thanks for letting me share my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Dennis, and then David.
I want to be as sensitive as I can to the comments first raised by Jared. As Jeff, I had put my hand up to think about the title insurance aspects. It's worth looking into. Along with that, any representations by your seller that maybe pointed to the fence and said, "Oh, that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. It's okay." So you may find somebody to help you or even totally take care of that. Can't promise it, but it's worth checking. I'm also aware of, I get mailings about a city program on streets and bus stops that they're coming up with plans for reconfiguring some of those. They might reconfigure them in a way that might be more palatable to you, or as Laura is suggesting, just to put it somewhere else. So that's just what I can offer to lessen the impact, let you mitigate this a little bit.
Okay. David.
Yeah, I was a general contractor for quite a few years and I've retired. I've been working in the film business for a while. I'm willing to help take down a fence. I find it as a bit of an affront to the neighborhood, and also it's not legal. So I'm willing to help.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments at this point?
Well, just that it's currently, I suppose, not legal, but a fence is allowed. And in fact, a fence of up to 8 feet can be approved. We're not asking for 8 feet, we're asking for 6. David, I appreciate the offer because yes, we have gotten some quotes about shortening it and they are high. So I appreciate that. And I'll take your name down and maybe we can make something work like that. But as far as removing the fence, that's not, I don't believe, one of the options that we're being asked to do by the department.
Well, let me ask you this, not, and this does not reflect anything anyone might vote on or even a motion that might or might not be made, but which would you prefer? A shorter but solid wood fence, which again, remember, because of the scenic highway thing, I'm not 100% sure you can even do that, but, or a taller but wrought iron see-through. In other words, which part's the important part? The privacy, the security. I mean, the privacy can be created through much more lush landscaping over time, but it wouldn't be instant. But you know, what becomes a priority, and you don't need to answer those questions out loud, but that it's sort of potentially a balancing act. David had his hand up again, and Donna has also now raised her hand. David?
I believe the height of a fence is only allowed to be 3 foot.
It's
And-
42 inches.
Yeah.
If a fence is allowed at all. So again, we have two different issues. And David, you weren't here. One is we have a 40-foot building line, and that often means nothing can be built, but it sometimes means a short fence can be built or other landscaping elements. But we also have the scenic highway aspect, and I really do not know what the impact is, to be honest. I don't know. But those, so it's two different things. The height of fence in a required front yard, style of fence on a scenic highway. Donna.
Question, isn't this zoning code? Doesn't it follow zoning code? We're just giving an opinion?
No, not anymore.
The code.
No, they're asking for relief from the zoning code. So in other words, technically, they've paid for and submitted, and the application has been deemed complete to ask for relief from certain sections of the municipal code, which is the zoning code, to allow the retaining this fence. But so the zoning administrator has taken that application, the case under advisement, and again, until August 6th. So it's for a couple of reasons. One is to allow the neighborhood council to meet on August 5th, and if we so choose, vote a position. I mean, either way, I have to write a letter. And it also allows the community to turn in its comments, whatever they may be. But he also said he was going to research, you know, at the hearing itself, the zoning administrator stated he was going to do research as to the impact of the scenic highway. And zoning administrators get promoted to be that position from other jobs in the planning department, in part because they're really good at this kind of research. So they do research.
They're allowed to ignore zoning code and to allow us to weigh in. Is that what you're saying?
No, the code, the broader code allows them to make individual decisions to grant an exception, or what they call relief, from this requirement, but they have to make findings to justify it. So those findings, there's 5 or 6 or 7 different findings that he would have to make, the zoning administrator would have to make in the affirmative to grant that relief. But the first thing he was doing is just seeing were there other code things to layer onto it, i.e. the city designated scenic highway. So I mean, in other words, he's still doing research into how many other laws apply. For law is not quite the right word, but how many other regulations even apply to this parcel. And then from there, he would need to take, he would need to make findings. There's an exception. I mean, in other words, the big finding is you would have to say there's an exception that makes your property different than all the others. And I'm not sure even that finding can be made. And it's a mandatory legal finding. So, you know, but it's not our job to do the findings. You know, that would be his job. Okay. Okay. Are there any other comments. David, can you just answer yes or no? Can I post your info into the chat for everyone? Or do you want me to just email Jared? You can just answer that question. If you're still here.
I'm still here. I just muted. I did put it in the chat. Is that all right?
You put it in, yeah, but it only went to me because I'm the host. So you want
Oh
me
yeah,
to
sure.
put
You
it
can
in?
put it to anybody.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So folks, it's 10 after 8. So we spent an hour on this. And let me guarantee you all, when we get to the board meeting, we will have max of 10 minutes. So let's think of what we want to recommend to the board. And I'm going to ask Dennis or Teresa what your thoughts are. I mean, we need to do a motion and move on to the next item. Or Michael, I'm sorry if he's still here, because the area reps and board members. So what do you think?
I'm sorry, Laura, what was the ask again of me?
Well, we either need to not do a motion or do a motion to take forward as a recommendation to the governing board. But what we can't do is another 30 minutes of chit chat because it's already 10 after 8 and we have one more item.
I don't think it's fair to pass on a recommendation, frankly. I think the owners found out new information tonight that they may not have any cost responsibility for removing the fence. And I think that needs to be decided by them, how they want to proceed.
Well, no, we're making a recommendation, if we are, to the board to make a recommendation to the zoning administrator. We're not making a recommendation necessarily to the owners.
Wow, that's a big
So let me try to revisit this and frame it.
Laura, I've got a motion.
Okay, and Teresa also has her hand up, but Jeff.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would move that this committee recommends to the UNNC board that the fence must come down and be replaced with an appropriate fence that fits what the city of Los Angeles defines in their city ordinance.
So you're asking them to comply with the order to comply?
Well, he's asking nothing until there's a second on this.
I'll second that.
Okay, now there's second. So replaced by, so I'm sorry, I'm still typing here. Committee recommend, the motion is that the committee recommends to the UNNC board that the fence comes down and be replaced by a fence that complies with
the LA City ordinance.
But there is no ordinance because in the scenic zone, you cannot have any fences.
That's not true, Teresa, because we talked about bushes and shrubbery as well as wrought iron fences.
I should rephrase that.
Do you know of the guidelines for scenic highways so that we can find a solution? Is it laid out?
Well, that's the thing we don't know.
It's being reviewed now.
Okay.
But Jared, title insurance.
Okay, so here's the motion right this second that we're dealing with. Jeff has his, Dennis has his hand up, and then I have a question, but Dennis next.
I would like to amend that motion, if I could do it before it's seconded, to include the provision that this board recommends that the 40-foot setback be waived as long as the owners can put in a fence that's approved as a fence within the city.
Okay, I think.
Point of order.
I don't understand. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, excuse me, point of order. It was already seconded, Dennis, I'm sorry, because Jeff put the motion forth and Michael seconded.
Okay, so I still have a question. Well, now I have a Robert's Rules question, Teresa. Is the mover able to amend his own if he hears some discussion, or do we have to vote on this without any amendment?
Did you, I think we closed discussion, right? I think the mover
No,
can probably.
I had not actually closed discussion.
Okay, then it's still open.
Okay, because I actually have a question, because Jared brought up something about building and safety also would have a regulation that the hedging or other privacy sort of landscaping would also not be allowed to be above 42 inches technically, right? Jared, did you guys had done some investigation? I mean, in
Yeah,
other words, building and safety treats a hedge the same as a fence?
That's my understanding, that it's really about the height regardless of the material. In the original citation, and that perhaps the administrator, I don't know if the administrator has a say one way or another on that.
Well, the zoning so I'm going to say just technically, what the zoning administrator could do, you know, regardless of what UNNC may recommend, the zoning administrator could say, you know what, I would approve a hedge that's that high, but I won't approve a fence, and then building safety is overruled. Or I would approve a wrought iron fence that's 42 inches high and a 3-foot landscape buffer right behind and in front of it perhaps, but it needs to be see-through enough to see the house. So that's an HPOZ thing, not a building and safety thing, but I don't know if it's also, you know, I think it might be a scenic highway thing. So in other words, I worked with an owner at Arlington and 24th. So if you think your property is exposed, that one's more so. It's on right across from South Sea's house, and cars crash into it. So it's very exposed. You're up on a hill. But they were not allowed to do a solid even trees. I mean, the trees had to be interspersed so that the house remained theoretically visible. I mean, obviously when the canopies would fill in, you'd probably not have as much visibility of the house anyway. But that you know, sometimes you have to look at what's fair. If some people have to do it one way, shouldn't everybody have to do it that way? But the zoning administrator has a lot of power here. The actual zoning administrator of the city of Los Angeles is higher than the general manager of building and safety. So the zoning administrator can make any decision they want to, but they have to make findings. So my question back to Jeff, who made this motion, you're probably making the motion not as an individual, but knowing what your neighbors might want. Would the neighbors also want them to have no thick landscaping in the first 40 feet, or what do you think?
I stand by my original motion.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this right now? No, seeing none. So the motion, which is in the chat, is that the committee, you know, the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee recommends to the UNNC Governing Board that the fence comes down, be removed, and be replaced by a fence that complies with the Los Angeles Municipal Code. I wrote ordinances because there actually is more than one. Moved by Jeff, seconded by Michael. So that is the motion. It's not amended. And I'm looking now to do a vote. So I think for this one, I don't normally do it, but I want to do a as if it was at the board of roll call voice. So I'm just going to run through who I see here on the thing. So please, everyone unmute themselves so that I can just call the roll. And that would be first Jeff.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Jared.
No.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that I don't know how you're going to vote.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for
Michael.
the opportunity.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so mispronouncing it. Ashley. Ashley.
Ashling, and
Okay.
no, please.
I'm missing people. Okay, because the order keeps changing. I apologize. Dennis,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Brittany.
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Eric,
No, ma'am.
Steve,
No,
was that a no?
that is a no, yes.
Thank you. And have I missed anybody except for me, of course? Okay, so
Michael.
what I have is 1, 2. Okay, let me just kind of go through this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yes on the motion. I technically have 4 no's, but I'm aware that that's really 6 no's because I've got Jared +1 and Eric +1, and then I hadn't counted me. So it's really 9 yes and 6 no. The motion passes. And I will I will say thank you. So now the motion that we're taking to the governing board is what you saw, that you remove the fence, and if there's a municipal code that allows you to have a fence, follow, comply. That's our motion to the governing board. And again, I will say, I don't know, we have 23 board members. At the governing board, only the board members are able to vote. So this is a motion we will take forward. I don't think we'll have more than 10 minutes on August 5th. And I am, if you guys end up having sort of an alternative proposal, you'll need to let me know, and we'll need to do a presentation, and then we'll have a little more time. But if this exact application is what you're presenting, then that's it. Okay, thank you. And oh, it's so bad to say at this moment, and welcome to the neighborhood. We want to be
Thank you.
but
Well,
I do mean that. I really do.
we understand because
and
we
a year
really-
from now, there will be a music under the stars on Labor Day weekend. 3 nights of music, and you can walk to it. And we'll all be sitting together. Okay. So if we may go to the next item on the agenda, please. And everyone who's here for the first item is welcome, please, to stay for the second. You don't have to. But we've been asked by a group of neighbors to consider this item number 4. And you know what? I think I actually should screen share this again. Because it's technical. So as you can see on the screen, I'm just going to highlight. No, I'm not. No, I'm not highlighting it, but the proposed letter regarding historic CEQA assessments for development projects. So currently, when a developer of any sort, for any kind of project that involves the demolition of a building, and if it's within a character or historic overlay district, or it involves anywhere a property that has been identified as potentially historic, that developer is required to essentially engage a historic consultant to further evaluate whether or not that property is historic. But under current city planning department policy, the developer may choose their own consultant and may choose the report to submit to the city if more than one report has been acquired. And I will explain that I've been personally in many situations where a developer has run through 2, 3, or even 4 consultants before getting a report they want, and they only submit the one that says it's not historic. Moreover, there at the moment does not seem to be a requirement that this whoever it is, the historic consultant, evaluate the interiors, even though the city's policy requires that a CEQA evaluation include evaluating whether or not a property is eligible to be a historic cultural monument. And the city's local historic cultural monument designation criteria does include the interiors. So we've been asked to propose that UNNC writes a letter request to the City Planning Department Office of Historic Resources that they change the policy such that no historic assessment actually be deemed complete unless there's a demonstrated evaluation of the property's interior. And maybe more importantly, number 2, that the city itself prepares the evaluations, although it's still paid for by the applicant, so that the city would hire the consultant, but paid for by the applicant to provide a better measure of objectivity and transparency in the process. So I'm going to stop the share. And Michael, I know you have your hand raised, but I need to give a little more explanation if you don't mind.
Sure.
This has come up currently relative, brought to us by the owners. It's a co-op, but the owners of the what am I trying to say? The urban garden, the community garden on Crenshaw Boulevard, which is located between Venice and Pico on the west side of the street. So it's the city's oldest still operating community garden. It is a minute out, a moment, 60 feet outside our boundaries. But we had been meeting pre-COVID with the garden along with the Mid-City Neighborhood Council. So we're 2 neighborhood councils meeting with the council office, and it's regarding a very tall development proposal just south of the garden, where if it's built as proposed, more than half the garden will not get sun. Yeah, so right. So their concern is sun. For real, their concern is the sunlight, not the noise, not anti-housing, just the sun. But there are 2 period houses that each had been identified in Survey LA on the parcel on Crenshaw Boulevard that's proposed for development. And with COVID, everything is moving very slow, but they just received the historic consultant's report back, and it was approved by city planning, even though the report stated that the consultant had not gone inside the houses, quote, due to COVID. But in this case, the developer had put in the application stating that the houses were vacant. So there's sort of a disconnect. Well, if they're vacant, which no one really thinks they are, why wasn't the consultant allowed to evaluate the interiors? Why it's pertinent is the case that was within our footprint, 1537 South Wilton Place. Similarly, although this was a very famous architect and a beautiful mansion, the consultant was not permitted to go inside the house. So he made a conclusion in writing that it was not eligible even to be a city historic cultural monument because the building did not exemplify the work of the famous architect who had designed it. But after the first fire, when now you could go in and photograph things without permission of the owner, it was verified that it was in fact a gorgeous, I mean, it really exemplified the work of the architect, but now of course it burned down. So this is this, so that became that issue is a real problem. And I did speak with the city architect today and asked him, even though he's the person also approving these, but he's doing it based on city policy, not based on his own necessarily personal opinion. And he said it it would be a proper letter to write, because our cultural heritage ordinance does include the interiors and does have a question within the criteria of is this piece of architecture, whatever it is, worthy of study by scholars. So it's hard to know if it is or isn't if you're never inside. So that's the context. And now, Michael, I know you have a question. Sorry, I talked a long time.
No, actually, I took my hand down, but my first thought was interior, the terminology. In most cases, not these two specific cases, it doesn't appear to me, or it's not been my experience, that HPOZ and the designation has anything to do with the property interiors. Otherwise, we would not be
HPOZ
able-
has zero to do with the property interior.
So therefore, why are we concerning ourselves with the designation of the interiors?
Because the CEQA evaluation, California Environmental Quality Act, by city policy, a consultant is required to evaluate an individual property based on, is it eligible for the National Register? Is it eligible for the California Register? Or is it eligible to be designated as a individual city landmark monument?
Okay. So
and
once
so
that-
our ordinance for individual city historic cultural monuments does include the interior. So that's why.
Okay, so once that designation has been granted, based on everything you've said up to this point, does the homeowner still have the opportunity to do a renovation and change the interiors?
Well, we are digressing, and the answer is yes and no, it depends.
Okay.
But that's not the purpose. The purpose
No, I
of
understand.
no, wait,
That was
the
a- that was
purpose of a
intermediate-
I'm sorry.
That was an intermediate step to get to another point. The other point is this. Is the strategy of this to pigeonhole these developers into not being able to take shortcuts to get rid of this monument housing in the cases that we're talking about? Are we trying to, you know what I'm saying?
I do. So our experience, our own UNNC recent experience, which is the best examples I can give, we've had two situations lately, meaning last 2 years, where one at the address 1509 South Gramercy Place, where the developer hired a historic consultant. The historic consultant wrote a report that said, sorry, it's historic. And then that consultant was told if she shared the report with anyone, she would be sued. Then the developer hired a second historic consultant who found that the house was not historic, but lacked the professional credentials or caliber, so that he wasn't allowed to submit that report because it wasn't the right kind of report. Then he hired a third consultant who this time was someone that the city would accept, and this consultant said it was not historic. So that's one situation where he was allowed to pick and choose which report to utilize. I've read all three because they ended up eventually appended because there was an appeal. And both the first one and the last one were bona fide. I mean, that's all I can say. And then when you get to the technicality of the California Environmental Quality Act and how it's applied, it's supposed to be if there's a difference of opinion among experts, then there shall be an EIR. So that one never went anywhere, meaning on a CEQA case, because in the middle of COVID and in the middle of waiting for a city council hearing on an appeal, building and safety, for some reason, allowed the building to be demolished. And the day before the city council hearing, our new city council deputy drove by and called me and said, "There's no house here." Just so you know. So it never got litigated. The situation of multiple reports and the developer picking between them did not get litigated. didn't even hit city council because the building was gone. The one on Wilton Place, different situation, was simply that the consultant, very legitimate consultant, somebody I've known for years, was barred from entering the interior, and that one was designed by an extremely famous architect whose works are rare, in still standing in Los Angeles. So it again might have, had the case proceeded to a courtroom, had an outcome where the judge would have said the city didn't do it right, but the house burned down. I'm using passive voice. So twice our own cases have not made it to a place where somebody is making a judicial decision, or even the city council, frankly, is making a decision, because neither one was really still a house by the time it hit city council. This new situation, the buildings are not demolished. I recognize that the neighboring property owners are, I'm using the word owner, but whatever the relationship is to the urban garden, plot owners, are grasping at straws, and the city is also not exercising any discretion, because it could easily be resolved by flipping the design, because there's a tall side and a short side, and they just happen to have the tall side next to the garden. If it was the short side next to the garden, probably this would all go away, including the historic assessment. So that's the specifics. The broader question is it okay for a developer to pick and choose who? I mean, in other words, there's consultants who'll always write, it's not historic, it's not historic, it's not historic. And then there's others, well, including me, who would always write, oh yes, I can find something historic about this. So shouldn't the city be the one kind of having a list of consultants who are more objective, and just having the developers pay those people? That's question number one, even though on the agenda it's question number two. And then but the bigger deal is, if you're evaluating a property based on, is it eligible to be a historic cultural monument in the city of Los Angeles? And one of the criteria relates to the interior of the property. Shouldn't it be mandatory that at minimum photographs are evaluated if you don't walk through? That's sort of the policy question. And then the real question here is, does UNNC want to even involve ourselves in this?
Well, I think we have to. I mean, I think we should involve ourselves, and I think the 2 points you're making, Laura, are excellent. I think a complete evaluation, interior and exterior, is necessary to make a judgment, and I think we need to write it that way. But it's also a systemic problem at whomever's department is responsible for making these choices. And the second point you make about a qualified list of consultants who can be trusted to do the right thing and not what the money tells them they should do is also necessary.
Okay. And let me just say, I have no intention of trying to write that letter tonight during the course of this meeting. Teresa, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. I agree with Michael. Yes, the interior should be evaluated by by an objective expert. And also, I am very concerned about that garden, the shade that's going to be put on that garden. And I don't know if we've done anything on that or not, or what recommendations we can make to have the developer, rotate that building. But shade will be detrimental to half of that garden, literally half of that garden. I mean, they will be able to grow plants, but not vegetables as they do now.
Right. Dennis?
I don't think this letter has anything to do with that garden. I respect the
Well,
opinion
yeah,
of-
it's not on this agenda, but I think what Teresa is saying is, can it be on an agenda?
I see. Okay. Well, my comment about what is on the agenda is that is to say that you've got to get a so-called approved, we would say certified historical preservation consultant is what you want. And I looked before this meeting to see what I could find, and I don't see that the trade seems to have that sort of thing. As a litigator, you can find certified consultants in almost every area. So if we can't find a list of certified consultants to choose from, then we need to treat this as an adversarial proceeding. And the community, that is we, the board, protecting our community, need to have the funds to hire our own consultants. So there's a consultant on each side. And what they do is they examine each other's report and they give us a report on what the other person said so we can sift it out.
Right. I mean, there's more issues than even that I already brought up. The planning department sort of does have a list of consultants they approve and those that they don't. However, it wasn't an RFP. There was no announcement that they were creating a list. There's not an objective measure by which you get on the list. They sort of test people who are new and say, why don't you try doing one? And then we'll tell you if you did it right or wrong. They don't have it's a problem. But what I have to say, just kind of being in the thick of this stuff, through in the city, not just here in UNNC, not representing UNNC. There's 2 or 3 firms that inevitably are hired by some of the major law firms who represent developers. And that's the thing I feel, on top of everything else, is the problem. I really feel many cities have a policy that they just charge the fee to, and it's not just for historic assessment, for EIRs. They just, here's the fee. If you need a major EIR and you're doing a major project and it's going to be $100,000, either way it's going to be $100,000, but give the fee to the city pays whoever's up next in the rotation so that there's more independence. That is not what LA does, but I'm not trying to undo the whole thing, but the historic assessments, is a smaller piece of it. It's a slippery slope to have competing assessments where the community has funds, unless the city follows the state rules for the notion of, if there's a difference of opinion among experts, then an EIR shall be done. That is what is said, but it's not what the city does. It's not the city's policy to follow that policy. And in fact, even when that happens, because I have actually seen in other communities where the community has West Side, they have the money, they hire a consultant, they do have a dueling competing, assessment, and the planning department just picks one, which again, it's like, whoa, that doesn't seem right. But that's going beyond what we need here, because we don't seem to have people with that kind of money to have dueling $30,000 assessments, if I'm saying that right. So is this, I guess I'm just asking, is this something we should be pursuing? Because we're not going to vote on a letter tonight. I didn't bring a letter, but is it something where John Arnold and I should start working on a draft of a letter to eventually, not on an emergency basis, take forward to the board? And Dennis, did you put your hand back up?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
On your last comment, on your last question to the board, I think not. I don't think we're ready to be putting together a letter on this. We're not quite sure that we could accomplish anything useful. My point maybe was using a cannon where maybe a fly swatter would work here. But to really resolve the issue, you do need an expert to protect your interest and question the other side. So I think if we were to do this, you say whenever the developer submits the plan and they know they're going to be required to submit an evaluation, that entitles the community to make a request for fees to retain their own expert. And to make sure that we're a little bit more honest anyway.
Okay, so you're suggesting a different letter. I mean,
That
in
we
other words,
consider a different letter.
I'm using the word letter. It could be a resolution, but I mean, which would be a more useful thing, because then we could also speak before the Cultural Heritage Commission. But what we can't do at the board is have a broad conversation. I mean, our board meetings is sort of like 10-minute increments. sometimes 20, but we have to deal with so much work. So this is a policy discussion. And you, Dennis, are saying John and I should not start working on a draft, but I don't know how we start working on this without starting on some sort of draft of something. And I just want to, and Teresa has her hand up too, but I don't know, maybe Dennis should answer what I just asked and then Teresa.
If you asked me to respond to that, I was questioning whether we have anything this meeting to propose as a letter, because we're rather unsure with what we're going to try and do. Are we going to try to get away from the old boys network, which may still exist even if you ask the city to do the report? Because I don't know, this is my lack of knowledge, but I don't know if they have their own in-house consultant. They're going to have to go out to somebody, and it's going to be the same old guy.
Right.
Go ahead.
I will answer your question. I think it's a lot of the same old people. Many of them are women, though, not men, not guys. The lawyers are the guys and the consultants tend not necessarily to be. But the point is, it's not random. So the city does have a list that, might be, it's 6 major firms, and then there's some individuals who are on the list, and maybe 3 or 4 newer firms. But what is also true is that there's a couple of them that almost always are on this isn't historic. No matter what they're evaluating, it's not historic. So one change would be if the developer just paid a fee and the city, even if it's the same, as you say, old guys, but if they're in rotation, so it's random which project they're evaluating, and the employer is the city, so they're not worried about not getting the next job from that developer or the developer's lawyer rep, because that's not who's hiring them in the first place. So they can maybe be more objective. I don't know if they would be. Anyway, Teresa, your hand's up.
Thank you, Laura. I agree that the interior should be evaluated. But maybe, as you mentioned, a resolution would be more effective or have more weight. But if we are unable to do a resolution, then yes, I think we should have a letter that we put forth to the board to establish what the planning board has determined to be something of value.
So my thought is, again, I didn't think we we're going to write something tonight. I didn't think we were trying to rush anything to the board next board meeting. My thought was simply to kind of get a pulse, and again I took a pulse at the planning department as well. So specifically, the architect in charge of this did say it's a good idea to write a letter to his bosses. He's just implementing policy, but it's worth a conversation at that higher level. So my broad time frame thought would be maybe not 2 weeks from now. There's an August 4th meeting, but maybe in mid-August, John and I present more of an outline of what a resolution / letter / memo could be, and that we continue to discuss it. And if it's ready to go by the September, hang on, looking at a calendar. Yeah, so we have, between now and the September 2nd board meeting, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 3 more planning and zoning committee meetings. And if it's not ready, it might be another month after that. I mean, this is a deal. This is a policy thing. This is not a emergency case processing thing. Dennis?
I endorse the concerns that you just expressed. I think a letter that expressed our concern and laid it out and suggesting as one alternative, a random selection of approved consultants, and perhaps in the letter to make that even more palatable as a reasonable approach, is that we consider that to be a more efficient, cost-efficient approach than hiring experts for each side.
Okay, so I'm not really looking for a vote unless anybody wanted to say that's a terrible idea, don't do it. Okay. Is there any, so I mean, moving on, the last item on the agenda is our standard follow up to previous cases, ENS and old business discussion and possible action. And that's usually where John or I say, here's an update to this case, here's an update to that case. So the update to the 1537 South Wilton Place situation is, one, the house is gone, meaning now it's demolished, not just burned 4 times, but really gone. We, UNNC Governing Board, on June 29th, voted to essentially reiterate our prior position that in terms of the design of the new project, we did not like the design, even the new design, that we wanted it, the building set back. We wanted it just redesigned. So set back further, more transitional height so that it fit more into the character of the neighborhood. We submitted that memo, John and I did, to the planning department and to the council office, because it was sort of 10 people on an email that had been an email thread for a while, and got almost an immediate response from the council office chiding us, saying, we told you we wanted some specific design ideas for the character elements, not a redesign of the building. And John wrote back and saying, this is the motion that happened. So, so I don't know. We've heard nothing from the planning department, only from the council office, and they weren't happy that we took the position we did, but it was what the board did. And then new problem emerged, and Teresa, I think you reached out on this. All of a sudden, the developer tells the lady next door, who was the original appellant, who appealed this case in the first place, that he was about to take out all the trees that are on the shared property line. Yeah, sigh, deep sigh, because can't people get along? And I know, I mean, in other words, it's like not necessary. He's just mad. It might be necessary, but it's like, can you just adjust a little bit here? And I looked at the original environmental assessment only to discover that in the original environmental assessment, they had not stated they were removing these trees, and the trunks measure around between 34 and 37 inches, depending on which tree. So that's far greater than 8 inches, which is what the ordinance requires. So I talked to the developer, I talked to the council office. I do not know what's going to happen with that. And I have, again, the planning department itself has not responded. And so I don't know. So that's my update. UNNC can't really do much more. I was kind enough not to give Teresa's phone number to Mrs. Stevenson, because she calls me at 5:30 every few days in the morning, not in the evening. But I understand. I mean, she's so frustrated and upset about this project next door to her. But so that's the update. I just don't know if there's anything else we can do on that one, and might need to be more vigilant on future projects, I guess. So. I mean, it does lead me to have another policy I want to propose, which is there should never, ever, ever be allowed anybody to just purposely leave a building vacant in the hopes that they can demolish it 2 years from now down the road for for a project, because we could use it for housing in the short run. And at minimum, there should be a caretaker, the lights on, the water running, and nobody breaking in so they can burn it down. But not tonight, not on the agenda. So, okay. Does anybody else have, I don't know. Oh, Teresa, you have your hand up. Any other updates? John's usually the person bringing the updates.
Yeah, no, not an update, but I do want to put an item on for future meetings when we're there.
Right. Okay. Well, we're there because that isn't an item on the agenda, but I'll make it one going forward. Future item.
I want to talk about the building down the street from 4,000. I think that's 4014 and 4016, the ones with the redwood fence, the other building
Yeah.
down there with the redwood fence.
Right. And so I'm gonna, because I have another photo somewhere. But, well, I'm gonna share this one and then scroll because I think there, that one. That's the one, Teresa. Can you see it?
Yes, I see it. Yes. I think that the other picture, this picture, the picture, the aerial picture you have that has both buildings.
Yeah.
It actually has three. That's the one that's the best
Right.
represented.
Right. So this one is that one. You see where I am?
Yes, I see it. But that's not the one. It's in the Google Drive. It's the very first photo in the Google.
Laura,
Yes,
stay
that's
there.
it. If you can make
Stay
it
there.
larger, Laura, that's
Yeah,
This-
stay
this
there for a
one?
minute.
no, the first, go back. Go back one. Yes, just make
Stay
that
there for a
larger.
minute. No, go back for a second.
Yeah, go back, Laura.
No,
forward
not that
or
far.
backwards?
Well,
That one?
Right
right
there.
there, stay there.
And just enlarge it.
Okay, it
Can you
might
do
get
that?
blurry. It's a
Keep
little
going.
blurry now. That's as much as I can do, unfortunately.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions.
That's
Is the-
perfect, right there.
Is the house on the left the one that was under discussion this evening?
Correct.
Okay, the house on the right, why is that fence standing?
Great question, Michael.
Jeff reported both of them. When it went up, we knew it was gonna happen, you guys. Back in 2019, we knew as soon as the one on the corner stayed there and we were fighting to get them to go out. We had to basically go to the 10 to make Beneva Jackson write that one up. That one we talked about tonight. We
So let
had
me
to
be
make them.
Okay,
clear, Donna.
So let me simply update you. This is factual, not opinion.
Okay.
I looked on the housing website. I mean, the housing department has a separate code enforcement and property activity report kind of website. And the fence on 4014, which is the westerly one, that there was a complaint put in. In fact, the housing department inspector put in a complaint. So in other words, whatever community complaint or council district 10 complaint may have been, more recently, the housing inspector, I don't know if it was a boy or a girl, so him or herself put in a complaint, but a supervisor closed the complaint. Right now, the housing department, I just went out on an inspection for a client, actually. So right now, what the housing inspector told me on a different thing is that they're really working hard to not deal with complaints that are not life-threatening. And they're trying
They
to.
said that before COVID. Now they have an excellent excuse.
Okay,
They-
I'm just saying, I had a meeting on Monday, just to be clear. And in this case, I'm happy because he wants to close a case that involves my friend. But not anything to do with UNNC, not in our footprint. But so what I learned today is that an inspector put in the complaint and a supervisor of that inspector closed the complaint. And I have been given a phone number of somebody one up to see. So I'm perfectly happy, not in the middle of this meeting, to pass that name and number on to someone else. So it's not me having to, pursue this, or I will pursue it. But it does seem inappropriate that if one building is subject to code enforcement and an near identical fence is 2 doors down, that they shouldn't be able to not be subject to code enforcement. They have to have parity. It has to be fair. So
Right, it is not fair. And if we're going to tell these other people, these young people on the corner, that they have to well, I really want them to remove the fence, but if we agree that it's gonna have to be, you know, a lower fence, then
Yeah.
these other people are gonna have to do a lower fence too.
Right. So I mean, in other words, parity is something that should be a neighborhood council's goal, and that, you know, circling back to the 1537 Wilton Place thing, the thing that they are proposing building, no one in the future will be able to build the way they're building because they just wiggled in that little moment in time between the city council approving an overlay zone and it actually being implemented, and they were deemed vested. But from this point forward, no one could build that. So that's not parity, and not treating both properties the same is not parity and not equitable. So
I think it was reported, I'm pretty sure Linda.
it was,
reported it.
Donna, it was close. It was reported several times. In the most recent time, again, somebody looked at an internal document today for me. And
Okay,
the most recent reporter was an employee of the housing department, an
so
inspector.
we
reported.
reported again?
Yeah, reported again, but closed again.
Or do you want us to report it
We
again?
reported again.
I think you should keep reporting it, but you have to report it to housing, not to building and safety.
Okay,
And from the person I was talking to before they knew the real answer, which it was an inspector, said that this was reported again recently. And I said, well, I wonder if the council office reported it. And the person gasped as if that's an important thing. Anyway, but to me, the most important thing is that everybody be treated equally,
oh yeah,
you know, equally good or equally bad. Jared's still on the call here. So
everyone has the right, everyone,
Right.
if
Mhm.
one is brought to the front, the other one has to too, that's not okay.
Right.
Okay, so that's the only the future agenda. item
Right.
that-
So Teresa, I am able, back on the community garden, I will check in with Mid-City Neighborhood Council, but I am able to schedule that to this committee. It's a board, what we call a border case, where, you know, a shared border case. But I'm not sure we have enough time to, if I bring it to August 4, it would also need to go to August 5 governing board. I think we're in that time frame at this moment on that case. I know they'll appeal. I feel the city planning department's going to approve it, and I know the next door neighbor is going to appeal it. So, but what I don't know.
We can wait until that point then, Laura.
Well, I was going to say, what I don't know is how many land use cases can be on a single agenda at any given governing board meeting, because we're all getting tired of really long meetings. And on August 5, we already have 2 cases. This committee has 2 cases that have to be on it. So that's
Okay, so we can do it. And just so you know, Laura, it's already after 9.
I know, 9:03. So Jeff just rejoined the meeting. Did you have something more to share? Can we adjourn?
Here we go. No, I'm good.
Okay, so I'm good with adjourning. Thank you very much to all, and see you soonish. In some of you in a few days. Teresa and Dennis, are you going to the retreat? Okay, and some of you at the next Planning and Zoning Committee on August 4. Okay, and some of you in IRL, in real life, at a dumpster that'll be on 7th Avenue on the 30th of, or 31st, whatever it is, of July. Okay, thank you.
Laura,
Yes,
you got a second?
sure.
I want
You
to talk to
me-
you about.
Okay, that's fine. Are we,
Can I call you?
everybody
I
else
call you?
exiting?
Yeah, do you want to talk offline or do you want to stay here?
I can stay here, but I don't want to be recording a conversation.
Oh, okay, I'll call
not
you. I'll call you.
Okay.
Thanks.
And that, I just want to say to Jeff, I'm going to send you an email, Jeff.
Okay, and he's still here.
Yeah, so. I'm
Okay.
sending you an email, Jeff. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye, everybody. So I'm going to end the meeting now.